Earth is suspicious. In a 7 consecutive catastrophic event, all somehow produced exactly the right conditions for life kind of way. So I've taken us back in time to see Earth's greatest hits and misses that led to life. You arrive at the formation of the solar system. It's 4.6 billion years in the past. The sun hasn't fully ignited. Around it, a disk of gas and dust is slowly collapsing into what will eventually become the planets. The sun is becoming a G-type star. Medium size, medium temperature, medium brightness. In the cosmic catalog, it's the pumpkin spice latte drinking, Lululemon wearing, Stanley Cup holding option. Most stars fail the requirements for complex life on at least one count. Too hot, and they fry organic molecules like a Samsung Galaxy Note 7 in a carry-on bag. And life doesn't get started. Too dim, and their habitable zone is so close that planets get tidally locked, and the star permanently bakes one side of the planet while the other freezes, and life doesn't get started. Too variable, and periodic radiation storms sterilize the surface at random intervals, and life doesn't get started. And too short-lived, and the star burns out before life has time to figure out how to get started. G-type stars like the Sun run steadily for 10 billion years, long enough for single-celled life to eventually, very patiently, become something that asks questions about why it exists. Then there's Earth's location in the solar system. Venus sits just inside the inner edge of the habitable zone, and you get 465 degrees Celsius, runaway greenhouse, atmosphere thick enough to crush a spacecraft on entry. Mars sits just outside the outer edge. There you get a thin atmosphere, temperature averaging negative 60 degrees, and the planet is bone dry. Earth forms at 93 million miles, almost exactly in the middle. This solar system sits 26,000 light-years from the galactic center. It's far enough from the radiation-dense core, where supernovae and black holes make stable chemistry nearly impossible, but close enough to regions where previous supernovae already scattered the heavy elements needed to build rocky planets. Too close to the core? Constant lethal radiation. Too far toward the outer rim? Not enough raw material to build a planet with continents. Now you're 100 million years after Earth formed. The planet heading its way at 25,000 miles per hour is called Theia. Theia is roughly the size of Mars. This collision would normally be described as an extinction-level event, except nothing yet exists to go extinct. The violence of this collision is thought to have caused Earth's 23.5-degree axial tilt, and the debris from the collision is ejected into space and coalesces into the moon. The immense energy of the impact caused the Earth to melt and create a larger iron-nickel core. All events that ended up being favorable for life. This enhanced iron core resulted in a stronger, long-lasting dynamo, creating a magnetic field that will shield the atmosphere and water from being stripped away by solar wind. The melting of the entire Earth allows for better separation of materials and helps create a more organized planet with a core, mantle, and crust, which is vital for tectonic plate movement. Without the moon, Earth's axial tilt wobbles chaotically between 0 and 85 degrees. At 85 degrees, the poles point almost directly at the sun for half the year. Seasons become unstable, and complex life needs stability. The impact left Earth spinning with a day just 5 hours long. This is a permanent, global, hurricane-force weather system with no interruption. The moon's tidal forces slowed that rotation over billions of years to the 24-hour day you've always known. Those same tidal forces also sloshed shallow coastal pools back and forth, concentrating organic molecules in patterns scientists believe may have directly helped life begin. The moon is approximately 1/80th of Earth's mass. Most moons are too small to exert a meaningful impact on their planet's axial tilt. This moon is suspiciously large for the planet it orbits. You are now sometime between 4.1 and 3.8 billion years in the past, during the late heavy bombardment. Gravitational shifts among the outer planets destabilized the asteroid belt and sent asteroids and comets flying inward. The thing you need to understand is that Earth formed dry. All 336 million cubic miles of water in the oceans arrived from somewhere else. It arrived here during this event. The comets and carbonaceous asteroids arriving during this period carry two things: water ice and organic compounds. Amino acid precursors, the chemical building blocks of proteins, have been recovered in meteorites that landed on Earth. The bombardment isn't just delivering water, it's delivering the starter kit for life. But the volume of delivery mattered. An Earth covered entirely by water has no continents, no surface carbon recycling, no terrestrial ecosystems. Earth ended up with enough to cover 71% of its surface, enough for a stable climate buffer and not so much that the land disappeared entirely. Then there's Jupiter. Like a bouncer who's been on the door for 4 billion years, Jupiter's gravity deflects or attracts most of what would otherwise reach the inner solar system. Without Jupiter in its current position, the bombardment doesn't stop at a useful level. Earth receives too much, too little, or the wrong chemistry. Jupiter has taken several direct hits doing this. You arrive as Earth's magnetic field switches on. 1,802 miles below the surface, Earth's outer core made of molten iron and nickel is convecting. The planet's rotation turns that convection into a dynamo. The magnetosphere activates. The sun constantly ejects charged particles, the solar wind, which move outward at hundreds of miles per second. Without a magnetosphere, that wind hits the upper atmosphere directly and over millions of years strips it away molecule by molecule until the atmosphere is gone. This is what happened to Mars. Mars had a magnetic field. It lost it approximately 4 billion years ago when its core cooled and solidified. Mars is slightly smaller than Earth, so it cooled faster and the dynamo stopped. Without the field, the solar wind stripped the Martian atmosphere in under 1 billion years. No atmosphere means no liquid water and radiation protection, leading to no life. Mars today is the version of Earth where that dynamo doesn't switch on. Earth retained its field because of size, large enough that the core has remained molten for 4 billion years. The same mass that makes the surface gravity right for biology also keeps the core hot enough to maintain the shield that protects the atmosphere that biology requires. The magnetosphere has been running continuously for 4 billion years. The auroras, the green and red curtains visible from the poles, are the visible exhaust of this process. They're charged particles channeled inward and released as light. Now you're at the origin of life, somewhere between 3.5 and 3.8 billion years in the past. Somewhere near a hydrothermal vent, or possibly at the edge of a tidal pool churned by the moon, a molecule is replicating itself. It'll take roughly 800 million years from Earth's formation for that first self-replicating molecule to become LUCA, the last universal common ancestor, one organism. Every living thing on Earth today is branching from a common ancestor. The conditions that made this possible were being quietly assembled by plate tectonics. Earth's crust is broken into moving plates that subduct and recycle. Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere gets absorbed into the ocean, deposited as carbonate rock, subducted back into the mantle, and released again through volcanoes. This cycle acts as a long-term thermostat that keeps surface temperature in the range where liquid water persists for billions of years. Plate tectonics also builds mountains, creates freshwater drainage, and when plates separate, they divide populations long enough for species to diverge. Earth's chemistry cooperated in 2 other specific ways. Carbon forms 4 chemical bonds simultaneously, which is the molecular architecture that makes biology possible at the complexity it requires. And water uniquely expands when it freezes, meaning ice floats. Oceans freeze from the top down, leaving liquid water beneath the surface during glacial periods where life can continue through conditions that would otherwise sterilize everything. Then, for 1 billion years, Earth did nothing. 1 billion years of relative stability. No major catastrophes. During this window, eukaryotic organisms whose cells contain a distinct membrane-bound nucleus and specialized organelles like mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, developed quietly. You are now at the Great Oxidation Event, 2.4 billion years in the past. Beneath the ocean surface, cyanobacteria have been photosynthesizing for millions of years. They split water molecules using sunlight and released oxygen as a byproduct. Each individual organism produces an insignificant amount. However, collectively, over millions of years, they added oxygen to the atmosphere. For the anaerobic organisms that dominate Earth at this point, oxygen is a poison. The Great Oxidation Event is, from their perspective, a mass extinction event caused by atmospheric pollution, and the pollutant is the air you breathe. Most of the life that existed before this event is gone, but the survivors, organisms that can tolerate oxygen and eventually metabolize it, inherit a much more efficient biology. Aerobic respiration produces approximately 18 times more energy than the anaerobic process that preceded it. That surplus is what made complex multicellular life viable. It allowed for bigger bodies, active nervous systems, brains. All of it runs on aerobic metabolism. The oxygen also built the ozone layer. Before this, UV radiation made land uninhabitable. But what made this process so interesting is the precision. The oxygen settled at 21%. Above approximately 23%, wildfires become significantly more frequent and destructive. At 30%, burning becomes effectively continuous. The Great Oxidation event started that oxygen production from near zero to a few percent, setting off a 2 billion year climb that would eventually land at the 21%. You are now just before the Chicxulub impact, 66 million years in the past. Dinosaurs have ruled Earth for 165 million years. On the forest floor, small, furry creatures move at night. These are early mammals, mostly rodent-sized, surviving in the world of the dinosaurs. They eat seeds and insects. They stay out of sight. But something is coming from space. A 6-mile impactor, moving at 12 miles per second, headed for the Yucatan Peninsula. It makes impact, and the consequences leave 75% of all species on Earth extinct. The small mammals survive. They burrow. They eat what's left. Their fast metabolisms allow them to adapt to dramatically changed conditions. The same traits that made them marginal in the dinosaur world made them resilient in its aftermath, and they inherit the Earth. This is Earth's 5th mass extinction. Each of the 5 cleared the field. Survivors diversified into the vacated areas. Over the next 66 million years, those survivors expand across the Earth. They grow larger. Some develop forward-facing eyes and grasping hands, spending the Eocene in trees. Some eventually come down from the trees. Members of the Homo genus appear 2.8 million years ago. They are bipedal tool users with a brain that burns more calories than almost any other organ in the body. By 300,000 years in the past, the Homo sapiens are here. They have modern anatomy, complex language, and abstract thoughts. 4.6 billion years of compounding conditions, all aligning for life and all leading me to you. Hello, Billy.
Hello. Do you want to play a game? Emu, here's the human you're assigned to. Study this planet. Study its life. Then head to your first mission at the bottom of the page.